People notice my hands first. They shake a little when I lift my teacup, and I usually smile and say, "Oh, don't mind that, dear. Comes with the years." And we both laugh. Ha 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 ha. Because laughter keeps things light. It keeps questions away. But truth be told, my hands learned that habit long before wrinkles ever showed up. When you see a title like A True Story About This Grandma, you might imagine a soft chair by the window, a cardigan that smells faintly of soap, a woman who's lived a full life and now just potters about. And yes, that's me now. I burn the toast sometimes. I lose my glasses while they're sitting right on my head. I say things like goodness me and mean it. But that title isn't there to make you comfortable. It's there because this story waited a very long time for a voice. The words I escaped my brother's abuse and got pregnant. My shock and rescue still feel heavy in my mouth. I didn't choose them for drama. I chose them because softer words wouldn't tell the truth. Some truths don't tiptoe in. They sit down and refuse to move. And that messy little thumbnail line, it sounds like someone finally blurting it all out, doesn't it? That's because that's how it lived inside me for years, tangled, unpolished, hard to breathe around, brother pregnancy, father's anger, landing where comfort should have been, and then somehow a miracle sneaking in when I least expected it. I wasn't always this old woman choosing careful words. Once I was just a girl who thought family meant safety. Full stop. Home was supposed to be the place where you could exhale. Bless my heart. I believed that with my whole chest. I was the quiet one, the kind of girl who folded laundry the way it was taught and didn't ask why. My father liked things proper, orderly. My brother was just my brother. That's all I thought he was. Funny thing about trust, you don't feel it working until it's gone missing. I remember small things from back then, ordinary things, like the hallway light staying on later than usual, like lying in bed, listening to the clock tick and thinking, wow, that thing sounds awfully loud tonight. Silly thoughts, I told myself. Nothing worth fussing over. So I stayed quiet. Good girls do that, don't they? They smooth things over. They swallow questions. They tell themselves they're imagining problems that don't exist. Now, sitting here as a grandma, I sometimes want to reach back and give that girl a gentle shake and say, hey, kiddo, pay attention. But life doesn't rewind. You only see the danger clearly once you're already standing too close to it. I'm not telling you this to stir trouble. I'm telling it because someone listening might recognize that tight feeling in the chest, that sense that something's off, even when everything looks fine on the outside. And I didn't know it then, but there was a first night when things stopped feeling like family. And once that feeling leaves, it never really comes back. Somewhere quietly, a kindness was waiting, though I couldn't see it yet. Ah, those mornings. Sunlight spilled across the kitchen floor, the faint smell of toast mingling with the scent of laundry, just folded the way it was taught. Life looked perfect on the surface, kiddo. People would walk in and think, goodness me, everything's fine here. And on most days, I could convince myself of that too. My father moved through the house like a metronome, shoes lined neatly, papers stacked just so, words carefully measured. People respected him. I nodded along because that's what you did. Obey, smile, stay quiet. Bless his heart. He meant well most of the time. But life isn't measured by how well it looks on the outside, is it? My brother, he had charm that made people trust him instantly. Joking with neighbors, helping dad carry groceries, laughing at the dinner table. Outwardly, he was the golden boy. And me? I stayed quiet, folded the laundry, swept the floors, smiled when praised. Invisible was safer, or so I thought. Sometimes ordinary days carry small, strange moments that don't fit. That morning, I noticed the hallway light stayed on after everyone left for breakfast. Later, a door clicked softly, though no one had walked past. My stomach tightened, but I shrugged it off. Kids notice things. I told myself nothing to worry about. Then came another moment. A hand brushing past me in the kitchen when no one else was there. I froze. He smiled, that same easy smile, but something about it didn't reach his eyes. I didn't move, didn't speak. The house felt heavier, as if even the walls were watching. Evenings were quieter, but the weight lingered. The clock ticked too loudly. The burnt toast smell mixed with something sour I couldn't name. I lay in bed, hugging the blanket tight, listening to footsteps that seemed closer than they should be. I told myself it was all imagination, yet the tension had shifted, subtle, creeping, impossible to shake. And then that night, he stepped into my room when I was alone. I told him to leave. My voice was a whisper. He didn't. My body froze. The moment stretched out, long and heavy, and I didn't know how to make him go. I lay there, wide eyed, pretending it was a dream, but it wasn't. Have you ever felt the first time something crossed the line? The kind of moment that changes the way you see ordinary life. That night, I learned that quiet obedience doesn't always protect you. And that's the kind of lesson you never forget. The days after that night felt heavier. The sun still spilled across the kitchen floor. The clock still ticked too loudly, but I wasn't the same. I moved through the house carefully, like every step could make something break. I would pause in hallways longer than necessary, checking doors, peeking around corners, making sure I wasn't alone. The house was the same, but I wasn't. I tried to act normal. I smiled when my father praised me. I hummed while folding laundry. I set the table, washed the dishes, and kept my voice low. Everyone else saw the ordinary girl doing ordinary chores. Only I knew how quickly my stomach would twist when footsteps approached from behind. Only I knew the sudden freeze when shadows lingered where they shouldn't. The first few nights, I found myself avoiding certain rooms. I'd linger in the kitchen, pretending I had errands, when really I didn't want to be alone anywhere else. I skipped snacks, hurried through chores, and pretended to be busy, just to keep from hearing that quiet hum outside my bedroom door. The tension started to feel like something alive, creeping along the walls and wrapping around me. One evening, while drying the last of the dishes, he appeared again, not touching me this time, not speaking, just standing there close enough that I could feel the air shift. I froze, drying the dish in my hands over and over, pretending it was heavy and slippery. Every muscle in my body locked, my heart hammering. I wanted to leave, to move, to speak, but nothing came. The ordinary warmth of the house felt gone, replaced with a quiet, creeping dread. That night I lay in bed and listened. Every creak of the floor sounded sharper. Every whisper of the wind outside felt like it carried him closer. The hallway light flickered again, and I flinched. Something in me realized for the first time that ordinary life had rules I couldn't control. The danger wasn't somewhere else. It was right here, in the rooms I had called home. And then the sound came, not a door slamming, not a footstep in the kitchen, but the soft click of the hallway door swinging open. My breath caught, my heart skipped. I pulled the blanket up to my chin and held it like armor. I knew in that moment that whatever was coming, it would happen soon, too soon to run, too close to ignore. Have you ever felt the instant when ordinary life stops protecting you and you know the next moment could change everything? That was the night I learned the walls around me could not keep me safe. The quiet corners of the house, the laughter at the table, the sunlight on the floor, they could all turn into shadows in a heartbeat. The door had barely clicked shut behind him, and I lay frozen in my bed, heart hammering so loudly I thought the whole house could hear. My hands gripped the blanket, my knees pulled close, and every sound, the wind brushing the window, the faint creak of the floor, felt like it carried him closer. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I just waited, counting each second as if that could keep me safe. The next morning, life didn't stop. My father moved through the kitchen, humming a tune I'd known since I was little. My brother laughed at breakfast, joking about some neighbor's cat. Everyone else carried on like nothing had happened. But I couldn't. That night had shifted everything. I noticed it in small ways. My hands shook when I poured tea. My smile felt forced. And I started dropping dishes or forgetting chores because my mind was elsewhere. It wasn't just fear anymore. It was the weight of what could happen next. I caught myself checking doors, counting footsteps in the hallways, watching shadows. I flinched at every sound, not knowing if it was ordinary life or something creeping closer. I began avoiding rooms he might enter. Even ordinary tasks became tests of timing and luck. Each day, the ordinary rhythm of the house felt tighter, more fragile, like the walls themselves were pressing in. One afternoon, I was folding laundry when he appeared behind me again. This time, closer, brushing past in a way that made my stomach twist. I froze. The blanket of safety I had built around myself had thinned to nothing. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. I barely breathed. And for the first time, I realized it wasn't just about avoiding him. It was about what would happen if I failed. That night, as I lay awake again, I heard footsteps on the stairs, not the distant pacing or quiet humming from before us, but deliberate, fast, coming toward my room. My pulse jumped. I pressed myself against the wall, holding my breath. Whoever it was, they were closer than ever. I didn't know if my father would notice or if it would even matter. Somewhere in the hallway, the floor creaking under weight I couldn't identify. My body was taut, ready to flee, but my room felt like a cage. Every second stretched longer than it should. That was when I realized something crucial. The danger wasn't in some far off moment. It was now, right outside my door. Have you ever felt that instant when ordinary life collapses into something immediate and terrifying? When you know the next second could change everything? That was me, pressed against the wall, counting each heartbeat, knowing that I couldn't stay hidden forever. The footsteps were louder now, deliberate, coming up the stairs faster than before. My chest hammered, stomach twisting. Every nerve in my body screamed to move, to hide, to vanish. But I was frozen, pressed against the wall. The shadows in the room stretched longer, heavier, almost alive. The door handle turned slowly. My hands shook so badly I could barely hold the glass I'd been drying. He stepped in, not yelling, not speaking, just standing there close enough that I could feel his presence like a weight pressing against me. I flinched as he moved nearer, and the glass slipped, saw a shattering on the floor. The sound roared in my ears, and then a sharp, insistent knock at the front door. His gaze snapped towards the sound. His jaw tightened. The easy smile vanished. He froze just for a moment. but long enough for me to feel it. The tension in the room shifted. My pulse thundered in my ears. I could hear the faint hum of the hallway light, the creak of the stairs as he took a half step back. That knock, it mattered. It shattered the rhythm he'd controlled, the invisible grip he'd held over the house. He hesitated, unsure, glancing toward the front window. Every second stretched painfully, and I realized, finally, that nothing would be the same after this. His control was slipping. The house, my life, my hidden world, it had changed in an instant. I stayed pressed against the wall, hands trembling, trying not to make a sound, but I could feel it. The rules had shifted. He was no longer entirely in charge. And in that frozen, fragile moment, I understood that this night marked the first real turning point. Something had broken, and I had to survive it. No reflections, no questions, just the sound of the broken glass, the distant knock, and a house that would never feel the same again. The footsteps had stopped mid hall, and my brother froze, eyes sharp, jaw tight. The air in the room was heavier than ever, like a weight pressing down on me. My chest hammered, my hands trembled, and I pressed myself further against the wall, hoping I could disappear into it. Then came the knock, sharp, insistent, echoing through the house. My pulse jumped. The sound wasn't distant or vague. It came from the front door, firm, deliberate. A voice followed, muffled but clear enough to hear. Hello, is anyone there? My brother stiffened. His easy control, the rhythm he'd set for months, faltered. He glanced toward the door, then back at me. For the first time, uncertainty flickered in his eyes. He muttered something under his breath, a hiss, a low growl, and stepped back. The shift was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it was there. The first thing that hadn't gone his way in a long time. I wanted to move, to speak, to cry out, but my body stayed frozen. Relief prickled through me, yes, but it tangled with fear. What if he realized the interruption came from me noticing, from me reacting? What if it made everything worse? My hands shook uncontrollably, and I could feel the sweat prickling at my temples. The voice at the door repeated itself, a little louder this time. My brother's movements became jittery. He hesitated near my door, pacing just slightly, unsure whether to continue his approach or retreat. Every second stretched, heavy with tension. My stomach twisted as I realized that this interruption could be dangerous, or it could be the break I had been silently waiting for. But I didn't know which yet. The room felt alive with possibility, but it wasn't hope yet. It was confusion, fear, doubt, a fragile crack in the world he had controlled. I pressed my hands against the wall, heart racing, trying to steady my breathing. Every creak of the floor, every rustle of paper, every muted voice from downstairs felt amplified. And then he stepped back, just a little, his control loosening, but not gone. The knock had shifted something, yes, but it hadn't fixed anything yet. The danger was still here. I still had to move carefully, still had to survive. Yet, for the first time, I sensed a space between him and me, a small pause in his unyielding grip. The interruption had come. That was all I knew, nothing else. And that was enough for now. The knock came again, louder this time, urgent and deliberate. My brother froze mid-step, eyes darting toward the door, jaw tight. The rhythm he had ruled the house with for months, every creak, every shadow, every silent corner was broken. I pressed myself against the wall, hands shaking, heartbeat loud enough I feared he could hear it. The voice outside called again, clearer this time. I saw the lights. I'm here. You're not alone. His eyes narrowed, lips pressing into a thin line. He muttered something low, almost a hiss, and slammed his hand against the hallway railing. A sharp, threatening motion. That glare, that promise in his eyes, said everything I needed to know. He wasn't gone. He wasn't defeated. He was angry, unpredictable, dangerous. But the control he'd held so tightly had wavered for the first time. I stayed pressed against the wall, trembling, barely breathing. The floorboard creaked under his hesitant steps, the faint rustle of the curtains amplified by my pounding heartbeat. I could feel the shift, his dominance fractured, even slightly, but the house was still mine to navigate carefully. Every shadow, every step, every sound carried a new weight. He glanced toward the door again, fury and uncertainty in his eyes, and whispered under his breath, "This isn't over." The words were low but sharp, cutting through the tension like a knife. Then he retreated down the hallway, slamming the bedroom door behind him. I didn't exhale. I couldn't. Relief mingled with dread, a tight, coiling feeling in my chest. The interruption had come. The first crack in his control had appeared, but the danger wasn't gone. The neighbor's voice had reached inside the house, disrupting him, but the real challenge, the real confrontation, was still ahead. I stayed pressed against the wall, listening, counting the seconds, waiting. Fear, uncertainty, and the faintest glimmer that maybe, just maybe, change had begun. But the night was far from over. What would happen when the door closed again? The house was heavy with tension, thicker than ever. My brother lingered in the hallway, muttering under his breath, pacing like a predator circling its prey. I pressed myself against the wall, heart hammering, hands trembling. Every sound, the creak of the floorboards, the rustle of curtains, the distant hum of the fridge, felt magnified. The neighbor's voice called again, firm but cautious. I saw the lights. I'm here. Are you okay? My brother's gaze snapped toward the sound, sharp and dangerous. He muttered a warning under his breath, his voice low and deliberate. You think this changes anything? Tomorrow, you'll see what happens. His words slithered through the hallway, heavy with promise. He wasn't leaving quietly. He wasn't defeated. He was recalibrating, planning, and I knew the next day would bring a reckoning. Footsteps came from downstairs. My father's voice, groggy but questioning. Who's there? What's going on? Panic shot through me. I couldn't speak. I couldn't explain anything without risking him finding out what I had already endured. I stayed pressed against the wall, silent, trembling. My brother's glare landed on me for a brief, sharp moment, a promise that he knew I had witnessed the interruption. The neighbor hesitated in the hallway, unsure, temporary. She didn't cross the threshold completely, didn't enter fully. She was a disruption, not a shield. Her presence rattled him, yes, but it didn't erase the danger. Then he did something irreversible. He slammed the hallway door behind him, hard enough to make the walls shake, and muttered a threat I would never forget. Tomorrow, I'll make sure you regret this. The words were not empty. They carried weight, and I knew the storm hadn't passed. I stayed where I was, pressed against the wall, listening to his footsteps retreat and fade into the night. Relief had no place here. Fear, uncertainty, dread, that was all I had. The shift had happened, yes, but it came with consequences. The danger had transformed, not disappeared. The night stretched long, heavy with what was coming. Every shadow, every sound, every pause reminded me tomorrow everything could get worse. And I had no choice but to wait, to endure, to survive until help could truly reach me. Sunlight sliced through the blinds, painting stripes across the floor, but it didn't warm the room. I sat rigid on the edge of my bed, knees locked, hands clenched behind my back, every muscle frozen. The floorboards creaked, and I knew he was awake. My brother, the one who had promised, tomorrow you'll see what happens. He appeared in the doorway, leaning against the frame, eyes dark and dangerous. You think last night changed anything? His voice was low, deliberate. You made a mistake noticing the lights. My stomach churned. He reached for my phone, yanked it from the nightstand, and slammed it onto the floor. This wasn't a threat anymore. It was punishment. I couldn't call, couldn't reach anyone. My small bubble of connection had vanished. A knock came from the hallway. My father's voice, hesitant. Are you all right? My brother's glare followed me, sharp and unreadable. He twisted the story just enough. She's imagining things. Leave her be. My father hesitated, then shuffled away, believing the lie. The room was silent again, except for my heartbeat, loud in my ears. My brother's eyes lingered on me once more, dangerous, calculating. Tonight, it'll be worse if you don't behave, he whispered. I shivered. Hours stretched out ahead, long, punishing, inescapable. I pressed my hands together tightly, staring at the floor, counting each second. I wouldn't leave my room again today. I had hours, not days. The morning had escalated exactly as he promised. The rules had tightened. The punishment was real. And the threat of tonight loomed heavier than ever. The day had dragged like a weight pressing down on me, each hour stretching longer than the last. My brother's threats had not eased. They had solidified into rules I couldn't break. I hadn't left my room. My phone was gone, my freedom restricted, my heart pounding in a constant rhythm of fear. Every sound in the house carried weight: the creak of the stairs, the murmur of my father downstairs, the faint hum of the fridge. Then, just as the sun began to dip, painting the walls in pale gold, a different sound arrived. A knock, not cautious, not polite, but firm and insistent. The voice that came after it was calm, authoritative. Open the door, now. My brother froze. His eyes narrowed, his face twitching with anger and confusion. He had never expected anyone to confront him directly, not so boldly, not so decisively. I realized in that moment that this was my chance. I moved carefully, hands shaking, but feet carrying me toward the door. The neighbor, who had first interrupted our nights, was there, and behind her, my father. He looked stern, conflicted, and protective, a presence I had longed for, but never dared to hope for. My brother's voice erupted, sharp and loud. You think you can control this? This is my house. But the words no longer carried the power they once had. His hands clenched, a step back, the shadow of authority finally slipping from his stance. The neighbor stepped forward, unwavering. No, this ends now. You are done. For a heartbeat, everything froze. The room, my fear, the house itself. Then the confrontation unfolded. My brother's words clashed with authority, his control breaking with every step they advanced. My father finally spoke, voice firm. Enough. I won't let this continue. I felt the air shift. Relief didn't wash over me instantly. It mingled with disbelief, fear, and trembling, but it existed. The phone, my freedom, my ability to speak and be heard were slowly being returned. The rules that had bound me, that had tightened with every passing day, were loosening. I sank onto the bed, knees still shaking, as the neighbor and my father guided me out of the room. I had survived. I could finally breathe again, even if the world outside still waited. My brother retreated, defeated in control, if not in anger, muttering threats that no longer held weight over me. The months of fear and manipulation had not erased the hope I had clung to.
The miracle hadn't been instantaneous. It had crept in through a knock, a voice, the willingness of someone to step into the storm. And in that moment, I understood. Even in the darkest, smallest corners, a spark of hope could grow into salvation.